Everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Back to my I'm at work series because they're building my house and the internet and my mother-in-law's house sucks. So there you go. This week I have a great guest, one of my favorites. I don't want to say my favorite because then that would be mean to the other great guests I have on my show, but it's top five. So if you've never heard Kurt Smits on a podcast before, you're about to have a good one. Here we go. This dude knows a lot. So, all right, Kurt Smits, the man. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me back on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, dude, anytime. Um, so today, uh, I'd had you on. I think it's back with Paddle and Fin. Had you on the podcast. It was you and Catherine Fields, and y'all had done good at Hobie event. I forget where it was. I know it was further up north, right?
Yeah, was that Susquehanna? I can't remember. It might have been Susquehanna. I can't
I know
remember,
she
man.
was fishing. Yeah,
Wisconsin.
she was fishing a big bridge, but whatever it was, that was a great episode, and you can definitely go back and listen to that. But I had some other questions, uh, kind of revolving around swim baits and when you throw them, the different kinds, like how they fit in your lineup and what situation you would throw when, and kind of the how, when, and why of these baits. So first, here we go. First question: Scrounger. And you're sponsored by Picasso. They have a ton of great baits. If you've never thrown Picasso, it's like top shelf, some of the highest quality baits on the market. You can't go wrong. Um, but I know that they sell like a weedless and a regular Sujin head. I think I'm saying that right.
Yep.
From Aaron Martin's, God rest his soul. I was really actually thinking about him the other day. I was like, it's so sad that he's not part of our just around anymore because I live near, where his family lives, and it's just
He's
sad.
such
But
a young guy too. Such a young
yeah,
guy.
oh yeah, yeah. I was watching some, kind of preparing for this, watching some Picasso video, like promo videos where he was talking about his baits, and it's almost hard to watch because he's gone. But so Scrounger, what situation do you throw a Scrounger if you throw one at all?
Okay, so I do throw them, but it's not like the first thing I throw. I mean, the first thing I'm going to throw, and I'm a swim bait guy. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about,
Yeah.
especially when I'm talking shop with someone like you. I mean, it's who's passionate about the sport. So when I throw, it's probably like the actual last thing I throw in my lineup. Because if I see fish that are hugging the bottom, I'm still going to try to swim something over them. But it's kind of like when you know the fish are there, you
Hmm.
see that they're there with your electronics, you absolutely know that they're there. Maybe they've nipped the tail of a swim bait that was swum over them or even bouncing off the bottom. That's when I'll throw a Sojin or a Scrounger type bait because those things wag the dog really big time. I'll put like a fluke style bait on there or even a stick style. Sometimes I put worms on there that are like more of like
Really?
a stick style worm
Hmm.
because they and when they're walking that dog like that, there's something about it because it's right on the bottom. This is a bottom bait for me. I don't swim it over. I just drag those in the bottom. They just sit there and wag the tail through them. There's just something about it at certain times. The fish will only bite something on the bottom that has a very erratic wag the tail type action to
And
it.
do you ever throw the weedless one, or is it just all? I mean, I
I
was
have
trying to
not.
think it.
Honestly, I have
Yeah,
not. Because I feel like when I'm throwing that bait, the bite is the hardest, and I want
the
nothing in between them closing in on the hook. You know what I mean?
the yeah. I was kind of wondering that would have to be a maybe if you were throwing on bottom and there was some timber or some
Exactly.
like yeah, but
I
yeah,
mean,
but
that's
yeah,
when I
that's
would throw it if I was in some timber. Throwing like those old. Sometimes those lakes will have those almost like field edges that are just like a line of trees going way out. If I was throwing way down one of those along the edge of it, that's when I would run a weedless one.
the really specific situation though. So for a kayaker, most of the time you're going to throw the regular scrounger, and yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
over
I
both.
I guess the place I should have started was swim baits, like just single swim baits. When is the time for a single swim bait weedless single swim bait and the different sizes. Can you kind of explain your thoughts on that?
Well, for me, man, it's always time to throw a swim bait. There is never not a time to throw the swim bait. Now, it doesn't always elicit the best bites. Let's be real, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
fishing. Sometimes they're into one thing or another. But I'm a swim bait guy, so I want to throw swim baits, and I tend to throw smaller swim baits. I go one of two ways with swim baits. I feel like I either go really, really small, like 3 inches, 2.5 inches, or I go really, really big, like above 6, and go to 8 inches.
Wow. Really? You throw the
Yeah, I
big
don't
eights and
think
all
they're
that?
in between, man. I feel like so when I really do throw the swim baits, it's early spring and late fall. And I feel like at
Yeah.
both those times we have a hat, or a lot of places have a hatching of small shad. So I'm throwing small shad type swim baits. And I love burning them, man. I love burning them and killing them and making them look like they're dying and they're falling. And that's a great way to catch fish. So when I switch that up to one that goes weedless, is when it's not necessarily that season, but you're fishing in that tight cover. You know, because I always prefer to go with no weed guard at all, like that. You know,
Yeah.
because when you set that hook, I'm generally throwing a lighter, smaller bait, and I'm on a lighter rod. So I need every chance I can to drive that hook home and make sure that it gets a good sticking into that fish. Because if I'm throwing on a lighter rod and you go back on it, it's just not going to have the backbone as a medium light's not going to have the same backbone as a medium heavy or a heavy rod. You know, because I'm throwing those smaller baits normally. So that's when I would change it up. As soon as I'm not throwing open water, I go to a weeded one. You know, and I really like those Picasso ones with the double weed heads on them with the
Yeah.
titanium that come out of them. Those so far I found it to be the best small jig heads for throwing heavy.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up. I had it. I had the Picasso tackle warehouse deal here because some of these things I wanted to. Oh no, that's the wrong one. I will bring it up here in a second. So, how are you setting the hook on the single swim baits? Is it more like I'm just making sure I'm doing this right because I'm pretty good with a swim bait, like single swim baits like that. I, I would say I'm kind of intermediate. Or is it a hook set or like a reel set, a jig hook set? How are you doing that?
I'm Babe Ruth in it, man. I am hitting it like a baseball, and,
All
and I and
right.
I tell you why, because we have to start with the setup. I'm generally on smaller swim baits. I'm using a medium light rod or a medium rod with a fast tip or an extra fast tip, and I'm throwing usually about quarter ounce, maybe 3/8. It really depends on how deep I'm trying to fish. There it is.
The
That's a
Picasso
great way
tungsten
to
double
start.
wire weightless ball jig head.
Yeah, really killer in heavy cover. Really killer.
If somebody's trying to cut down on tackle, do you bring both the non-weed guard one and clip it off, or do you buy both?
I buy both.
Do you?
To be honest with you, this is high end gear to me,
Yeah.
so it's not something I'm just going to clip off those titanium weed guards. You know, I feel like that's a pretty nice bait.
Oh yeah.
You're going to spend reasonably good money to get that nice bait or nice terminal tackle, and I want to keep that stuff separate. I'll bring both. And I'm not the one to ask about cutting down on gear because I bring everything,
The
even when I know
yeah.
I'm only going to keep two things. I bring.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean $3 a piece. They're definitely, you know, they're proud of them, but it's a great product. Do you think like if somebody has been throwing lead, if they go to tungsten, do you think the smaller size actually helps with, well, I'm sure you do, you throw it, but with the hookup ratio of maybe just a smaller head, how that helps?
I don't know if it really helps with the hookup ratio. I honestly don't feel like my hookups ever suffered, really. I tell you what does help with that, especially Picasso, because they are proud of what when they make stuff and they make them high quality, is that
Yeah.
they're using super high quality hooks in a really small package. So when you're throwing those small baits and you hook into a monster, you actually have a chance of landing them, a lot better chance of landing them because that hook's not going to flex as much. It's not going to break as much. The titanium, or excuse me, the tungsten part really comes into play when I'm dragging the bottom. I can feel and tell you the exact makeup of the bottom. I can tell you if it's coarse sand, fine sand. I can feel the size of gravel. I mean, it's really when you go tungsten, it just changes my relationship and how I'm fishing, especially I'm fishing the bottom, because I can feel it so much. Those are the
And for
advantages.
gotcha. And for the sizes and colors, is there anything you would suggest you? I mean, since this is one of your kind of, you know, base go-to techniques, do you carry all three colors and all the sizes, or what? What would you kind of suggest for people? Maybe if they're just getting into it
Okay, if you're just getting into it, quarter ounce. Get quarter ounce,
with the
get
four
it
aught.
in the two lengths, get them in the two O's, and then the next size bigger, because then you can run really small baits, and then you can run up to about almost a 6-inch bait with that hook. And
Ah,
that's all you
okay.
need to get started.
Huh.
Now personally, I carry at least two colors. I carry all the sizes because it just really depends on what's happening at that moment, because fishing can change on a dime, and sometimes you have
Yeah.
to make adjustments really quickly. So I tend to carry a lot of everything. Now I
And
throw quarter ounce probably 90% of the time, because I feel like that's the sweet weight for covering water, being able to fish shallow, being able to fish a little deeper.
where do they do two different sizes? Because here on Tackle Warehouse, they only have the four aught. Do they sell a smaller
You
one
might have
on
to go.
Picasso?
You might have to go to the Picasso site. They
Yeah.
actually have three sizes. I
Oh
believe they
wow.
do 2-aughts, 3-aughts, and 4-aughts on them, if I remember correctly.
So you do like a 2 and a 4, like a 3 inch bait and a 4 inch or 4 inch plus?
Yeah, exactly. It'd be like I'll use the 2-aught up to a 3-inch bait, maybe a little bit bigger, and then I'll use the 4-aught for everything bigger than that.
Okay, cool. And I know you've made a lot of money on that, so you know, yeah, that's a
That
that's
was like a
definitely
Norman special there. That was
no,
one of
yeah.
the baits that really did good at Norman for me.
Hmm. And now, okay, so I guess I started thinking about this because of the fall, and I seldom ever throw a underspin and like you know tactical bass, and it's like you always want to buy something else. Tactical bass and all these other people underspin, underspin, underspin. 5 baits of October underspin. I'm like, when the hell do I throw an underspin? Because I already have a swim bait, I already have a spinner bait. When am I throwing this dude on? So kind of when are you going to an underspin over a swim bait?
That this is a really good question, and I feel like it's a fall time deal for me. I feel like in the fall, especially when you see all the shad, and I mainly imitate shad. That's my big thing with underspins. When
Also,
you see
no
them kind of like,
bluegill colors or anything.
no, not too much, not too much. I do have some, and I do throw those on bluegill beds when I think bass are marauding them and stuff. But for me, and where I live in the country, we are so
Yeah,
shad dominant for our
yeah,
prey species
gotcha.
that I'm almost always just that's just kind of. And then sometimes you notice that too on certain away lakes that I do better when they have shad, because I'm just more familiar with fishing shad style.
Mm,
But it's like
okay.
it's like kind of in the fall, right when that cool water starts really cooling down. It starts getting into the low 70s, upper 60s, that I start really keying on underspin. Because one, it slows the bait down, and it also flashes. And if you kill it, it makes the bait fall super erratic, almost like a spoon. Instead of just falling straight back down, a good underspin will pull it off to the side, and it'll kind of weave around as it goes down.
I think
And that's
really
what I like.
one of the most
Right.
interesting things about theirs is they have that flexible spinner on there, like that. The connector
Mhm.
is flexible rather than being a a piece of metal.
Yeah, it gives it a little different action with that, and I really like that about theirs. And I like how that you can actually just buy those parts. So like if you wanted a white jig head and you wanted to put a bronze blade on, you can. You can really customize it. Because let's face it, this really comes down. Fishing comes down to matching the hatch, especially in any place that has clear water or clearer water. You know, the local guys are really going to know what color differences are going to make things come together. You can do a lot of different things. Now, if you go to like their, again, it's you probably have to go to their website to get them, but you can get them just the spin.
So for an underspend, you're thinking more like you're competing with bigger bigger balls of bait because it's the fall. Bass are the water's cooling off a little bit. Bass are starting to target them because it's the fall feed up because they feel that little bit of they know fall and winter is coming. They feed on this year's shad. So with the underspin, you're trying to stand out from the other bait fish, I guess.
Exactly. And when I find those big balls and I know there's bass around them, I will kill this and let it fall all the way to the bottom through the big balls because more often than not, the bass are on the bottom coming up and hitting the shad. So
Hmm.
just by letting it fall through them, and then if I feel like there's little marauders, like little groups of them swimming around, which you can see if you have panoptics, um, I will throw it off to the sides, rip it, and then just kill it. Not necessarily let it hit the bottom, but let it fall a really good way so it does its crazy stuff, and then rip it back up and kind of let it do it again all the way back. I mean, it's just such a fun way to catch them because generally speaking, when they hit those, they're not timid. They're not like tasting. They're
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 there
just
to
going
eat.
right. I mean, they're just hitting it hard. And it'll come out of nowhere too. That's the best part too. Man, you're fishing those ball shads. You can't always see everything, even with the best panoptics. You won't
Hmm.
be able to see necessarily every single bass in there, so they'll just come out of nowhere, and you'll just so much fun, so much fun. And we're like weeks away where I live from that
Yeah.
happening.
I was out last weekend and it's starting to, the water temperatures are definitely starting to dip. Um, what, so what sizes do you mainly throw with this? Is it just because if it's mainly in the fall, are you just throwing the smaller baits on this?
Yeah, mostly I'm throwing the smaller ones on there. I do have some of the bigger ones, but I'll be honest, man. I'm never in that situation where I feel like I need to throw the bigger ones. It always seems to be that three or the 3 to 4 inch shad that I'm trying to imitate.
Yeah. And I'm going to bring up, I know that they sell something crazy and I'm going to find that dude. Um, they sell that double spinner thing, don't they?
They
Them
do. They
Picasso,
have
them
one that comes
Picasso.
down off of yeah, it is off what is like a titanium weed guard underneath it that has a
Yeah.
double spinner on the bottom, man. I think that's really cool. I haven't gotten one yet, but I think that could come to big time play, man. It's a little different. It'd be really flashy. And when you killed that thing, it'd be double helicoptering down. I mean, that's just got to be crazy.
Yeah, I've always seen that, and I don't see it on here. Maybe they don't have it on Tackle Warehouse, but
Yeah, Tackle Warehouse doesn't have quite all their full lineup.
yeah,
They
I'm
have
trying to
most of
find it on their site here, and oh, there it is. Here, let me change this.
it. I mean, it's
Present.
it's sweet looking. I haven't gotten one yet. I'm actually about to place a Picasso order. That's one of the ones I want to get on there.
There it is. The double barrel.
The double barrel, yeah. Isn't that
Yeah.
thing sweet looking?
So I,
It's like I mean, that's just got to attract a lot of attention, man. I think there's when they're excited and they're looking for that flash.
mhm,
I think that could be the ticket right there.
yeah, I'm sure there's some time when that would be like, the deal. That would be like the bait, and then no one else would have it. You'd be the only one with it. Yeah,
Right,
I like
right.
it. Okay, so all right, so now the next one, because I really don't understand this, is um, when are you going to go to? Let's see if I can find it. like the sounder jigs, bladed jigs. Well, yeah, like the Willow Vibe. I know I have it on the other deal. Yeah, the Chica Vibe, the Wacky Vibe bladed jig, uh, the Smart Mouth inline spinner. Like, I, I guess it was more like the finesse bladed jig types, or even the undress shock blade pro. Is that just going to be more? You're just throwing it in like closer to cover, and you're not going. It's not going to overlap with an underspin and a single swim bait normally because you're not going to throw it in cover. Or how do you fit
Exactly.
those in?
Exactly. So for me, all the like the bladed jigs, that's all. I throw that stuff around cover mainly, man. Like all the ones you're looking at right here, to me that's cover, cover, cover. That's what I'm throwing on cover. I throw it the same places I throw a spinner bait. Right into the mess of the trees. I drag it out. I let them bump around. I let them bang off and stuff. That's when I throw that stuff. I'm mainly throwing swim baits most of the time in kind of open water situations.
The
And like the inline spinner, since you brought that up, it's a big inline spinner, and that is great
it's
along with
grass,
grass
right?
spinners, man.
The
It just floats. It's so beautiful right through the grass.
I'm going to try to keep it on topic because I could go down all these rabbit holes. Like, when would you throw that over a spinner bait, a chatter bait, a weedless swim bait? But and then you also have like a speed drop, which that's more like a Demiki rig type hovering deal, right?
Yeah, it kind of is like a Demiki rig, but bigger. The speed drop, and if you see the angle on the head there, see how it's not a 90, it's actually past a 90, how that comes
Yeah.
back like that. When you put any type of fluke style bait on there and drop that thing straight down and bounce it, my goodness, that the crazy whip to the back end that you get out of it is just really, you can't get it unless you have it that angle on the eyelet right. And not
Mm.
only that, this looks like a ball-headed jig in that picture, and it's actually like an aspirin. That head on there isn't, it's round. There you go. See, it's like an aspirin. So it changes how the weight is coming down. It's more centered in the bait. So when you bounce it up and down, it's not doing anything side to side. It's all up and down from the front to the back when you're just putting the smallest amount of action into it like this, just barely tapping the tip. That thing is going like this under the water, man. It is just going crazy. It's a
Mm.
neat bait, man. For me, it's more of a vertical style bait. I know a lot of people cast them along bluff walls and jig them back, which I think it'd be
Oh,
killer for that too. I just don't
yeah.
have a lot of bluff walls where I live. Um, that's like a vertical bait. I tell you,
I,
I got my hands on those. I got them on a little bit late for my river season. Man, for those fish that were kind of those bigger fish that were suspended that I couldn't get them to eat a swim bait, I would drop that right on them, and I could see that it was like right on top of them, and I would just sit there and jig it, and eventually that fish would give up and eat the darn thing. That was the only thing I could get them to bite. It was
wow.
it's a cool bait. Man. It's a really cool bait.
Okay. Man, more than anything, I'm really upset because now I got to buy some stuff and I've got too much stuff already. Like some of these things that it's overwhelming, especially as a kayak angler. I mean, there's terminal tackle and a lot of the trailers, swim baits are going to overlap. So you're not adding too much, but darter heads, ball heads, weedless ball heads, speed drop. It's just a tremendous amount of things of knowing
It
that
is.
exact time.
It can be overwhelming, and the easiest way to not be overwhelmed is to buy the round ball jig head.
That's right.
I mean that bait all by itself. There's so many different options. If you're getting overwhelmed, you know what I mean. This goes for
Hmm.
everybody out there. If you're getting overwhelmed with all the different options, just go to the good standard basics and then work your way out from there. Because once you get that, you'll figure out that hey, maybe I want something white, and I'm going to try this because it's going to change the profile of the front end. So I'm going to change the style of the jig head I'm using, you know, and then so you don't buy everything and then you only end up using 2 things out of all of them. You start with that guy right there, and that's going to take you. They also have the same version of that without the weed guards. It's called the round ball tungsten jig head too. So you can get it those 2 packages. Buy 2 sizes of each, you'll be set.
Okay. So here I'm going to look at the sizes. So they have the 1/4 ounce and the 2, the 3, and the 4. Okay, just like I said, they have all of them. And now I'll get most situations, huh?
Yeah, if you get the 2 and the 4, I feel like that covers most stuff.
Yeah.
Most stuff.
Okay. So here,
And
let
if you
me.
look real closely on the end of those weed guards, they put little globs of like silicone on it. So
Mm-hmm.
when a fish bites down, they don't get stabbed by it from the back. Because most of the time, fish bite from the back. If you have a weed guard that comes up, that if you don't bend it down or you have those little globs on there, when the fish bites it, it can like sting them. You know, it'll give the fish an extra chance to realize what's going on before you set the hook on.
All right.
It's
So I
those
don't
little
want you to give.
details.
I don't want you to give up too much here. But what swim bait you throwing? I know you got a special one that you like, right?
Man, I do, and it's the Strike Kings. They're swim baits. I
Rage
mean
swimmer.
them and man, I can't believe I can't remember the name of it.
Who
Oh,
makes it?
company. I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. But the Strike King's probably my favorite one to throw, and because they make a 2.8, they make a 3.3. Those 2 sizes for me are like the majority of what I throw in the spring and the fall.
Here, I'll go ahead and bring that up.
And I get some custom guys to make me some swim baits that are more shad like. They have a wider body to them, and I get them to make them in a shad presentation and a bluegill presentation. And those run, some of them run beast hooks or the beast style hook to it.
Mm-hmm. So do you kind of want to? Is there maybe a couple of colors people should be looking at? Because there's
Yeah,
some. Just try and match the hatch. I mean, but
yeah, exactly. So I get the one with the gray back. Might be that one right there. There's one thing. Yeah, there we go. The gray back and the kind of white silverish belly. I like that a lot for a shaded presentation. Um, they also have smallmouth. Is it called smallmouth magic? I think it's smallmouth magic, but to me it reminds me of a little bit of a bluegill.
it just might not be on here.
Yeah.
Electric Chad, IU. It's good looking
I mean,
colors for
like
sure.
you said, it's just matching the hatch. I
Mm.
have, you know, those are probably my 2 favorite colors, but I have probably most of the colors that they make right there. Again, though, when I get to a lake and I kind of figure out what they're eating, I'm not switching colors at that point. I'm pretty locked in. I'll bring out 2 colors, maybe.
Is there a certain water clarity that like obviously it's going to work for clear water? Is there a certain point where you say this just isn't going to work anymore?
Yeah, well, they'll always work. You just have to get closer, and as the water gets dirtier and dirtier, you know, so the fish are visual too, right? It's not just
Mm.
their lateral line that largemouth and smallmouth eat, especially smallmouth. They're visual. Like you can rip a swim bait in clear water, and a smallmouth will come from a very long way to hit it. But in dirty water, that distance dramatically closes because it's not putting off a ton of vibration compared to a spinner bait or a bladed jig. So I don't know. I don't have like a hard rule, but as soon as I can't see the swim bait when I start retrieving it and I start bringing it up to the top of the water and I can't see it, but I can see a ripple from the tail, I'm switching to something else.
Gotcha.
And I'll
Is
switch
there
to, and if it's that dirty, it's going to be black and blue,
how about jerk
whatever.
bait, swim bait? When are you going? Because I'm trying to think of different baits that are going to overlap that fish the
Like,
same
what do you
water
mean by
column.
jerk bait swim bait?
Well, like when are you going to go swim bait over jerk bait or jerk bait over swim bait?
Well, I tell you, that's really interesting that you say that. So, and so this is some juice. This is, at least I think it's some juice. It took me
Oh,
a long time to figure this out. When I am running a swim bait and I'm like, I just got hit, and then I throw it out there again, and I start slowing it down, I start speeding it up, I start pausing it at the hit, I start doing all these different things, and I'm like, I got hit again, but I can't hook them. That's when I switch to a jerk bait,
but
because that jerk bait,
you're always swim bait first.
always, always,
Always,
it
yeah.
is, for me, it is the best bait to cover a lot of water. I can make really long casts. Like if I come up to a grass flat that has some patchy grass on it, I can throw it over the top of the grass. I can throw it a mile, bring it back and cover a bunch of water. And I don't always have to hook a fish. I just have to have one react to it. I just have to see one swirl or feel one bite it. And then I'll start breaking it down from there. Like, is it a swim bait bite, or is it a worm bite, or is it a jig bite, or is it a bladed jig bite? I'll start working out from there. But for me, it's my search bait. I'm sure if you ask like Jordan Marshall, he's going to say a bladed jig
Chatterbait, yeah.
is his search bait. I mean, everyone has their different one. But, I'm a finesse guy. To be honest, I kind of suck at throwing the bladed jigs, so I don't
Dude,
throw it nearly as much.
I think this year I caught maybe 3 fish on a chatterbait. Like it just like I caught maybe 20, 30 fish on a spinnerbait. I'm just like you. I'm more of a finesse guy. Like I think more. I've kind of come to terms with me being like I think it's a power finesse guy. Like I don't throw a lot of baits in the middle. I'm either throwing big top waters or jigs trying to get a big bite, or I'm finesse. Like I skip the middle completely.
It's funny you say that. The more and more I talk to different anglers that I respect, that I feel like are really good anglers. I feel like more and more people are saying that. It's like they're either going small and big, or they're going finesse and super power, but they're not doing a lot of that in between as
Yeah.
much. I feel like you figure it out kind of at the fringes, and that's where people tend to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's working for Jordan and plenty other people there, shallow finesse or whatever. So, I mean, I think there's room for everybody. But for me, especially here in Alabama, the water gets so much pressure. It's like it's either good or it's bad. There's no like, oh, today's okay. I'm catching a few fish. It's either like you are not getting a bite or you are getting all the bites. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that works for me next year. Because honestly, I've been
It's
thinking about
working
that a
for you
lot.
this year, though.
Huh?
It's working for you
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, but I'm not fishing against the guys out on the national trail either. These great anglers where I live, but I'm not fishing against you and Jordan every day either. So,
Yeah, you're,
uh,
you're
well,
fishing against some good guys, though.
yeah, oh yeah, I'm not putting them down. There's some really, really good anglers in Alabama. So, um, all right, what I leave, let me bring up my talking points here because I am a prepared podcaster. Um, Rod, you were saying that you make a little bit longer since it's your search bait and you're making long casts. What are you throwing like a 7.3, 7.6 for the ball jig?
7-1.
Okay, so in between
Yeah,
because
yeah, not
you
super
still
long.
get I know you've said before on the other podcasts that you're not afraid to throw it wherever. So you need something kind of in between so you can still make those pinpoint casts.
Exactly, exactly. For me, right around 7 foot, between 7 foot and 7.3 is like my sweet spot
The
for almost all my rods.
and
I
medium,
got
medium
one with
light,
a little. Hmm?
and medium, medium light.
For throwing small swim baits, yeah, yep,
Okay.
that's my two favorite. It'll be either a medium or a medium light, with the fast or an extra fast tip on it. Kind of depending on the make, depending on the model of St. Croix I'm using, because
Mhm.
some rods are a little bit quicker in the tip than others, so then I'll back down to a fast tip. And then some rods, I like them to be a little bit more sensitive because it's not quite as stiff of a rod, and I'll give that an
Mhm.
extra fast tip.
And since you're throwing that bait in all different kind of situations, are you throwing what kind of line are you throwing? 10 or are you going really small?
No, actually, I am the opposite. So this is where I diverge from almost everyone else who is like a finesse fisherman. They're all going to 10 pound, 8 pound. Man, some of my northern buddies are like 6 pound line.
Yeah.
I have 17 pound leader on almost all the time.
Leader. Okay. Wow.
And then a 20 pound braid that I get. I use Suffix. I have no affiliation with them, but it's, man, it's just really good line that's not real expensive, you know. I use
Hmm.
Suffix braid on there, and it's that's my go-to. That's my go-to setup for almost everything except for like heavy punch. You know, when I start moving up into punch-in or heavier stuff, I move up to like a 40 and a 60 pound line. But for
I was
almost,
wondering maybe do you do the is that why you throw a quarter ounce? Because whenever you said that, I thought, well, quarter ounce is a little heavy. Do you do you need that little bit of extra weight in the head to get the 17-pound line down? Like if you were throwing it on 10-pound line, would you throw it on, would you throw the 3/16th, I guess?
no, no, I wouldn't
You
put
would,
10 pound line on. I don't trust it. I'll be honest with you. My heart's been broken a few times,
yeah,
like getting them close to the boat, bumping the line, having the line break, and it's just like, and it's so rare that I feel the bite is, they're so picky
hmm,
that they're looking at my line and not what I'm throwing. Because when I put that line in water, especially when you start going 15, 20 feet deep, it's going to be a lot harder to see that line in the water. Now, you know, it's a clear line, so it's, you
yeah,
know, now that's going to spark a huge debate among some people. They're going to swear 10 pounds, 6 pounds, and they're right. They're 100% right that they're catching a unique bite with that 6 and 10 pound line stuff. But it's just, for me, it's almost always, I might go to 12. That like when I feel like the bite's really that serious, I'll
yeah.
cut my leader off and I'll put 12 pound on, and that's just like I can't go any lower. I actually
All
have
right.
some 10 pound line in my kayak right now that's been in there for 4 years.
Don't use it.
No, I know. I
It
just threw
really
it out.
won't
I
work
literally
now.
just threw it out. I pulled it out and I'm like, oh, it was like way in the bottom, buried under stuff. I'm like, oh, this is nasty. Just threw it
Well,
out.
that
But
we
you know,
found out
it's
we just found out why your 10-pound line isn't working because you're using old stuff.
if I did tie that on, it would not work, man. It
Yeah.
would not work.
I've done that before. Like, oh, I think this spool's okay. Get out there and keep breaking fish off. Well, that's why.
I mean, you hate
Yeah,
to throw the line out though,
I
right? You get
know.
the
And
spool line you forgot about,
yeah.
brand new.
And a line is like has to be the one. I mean, I use good line, but like it's got to be the one thing I feel I'm most upset about spending money on. Like, I'll spend money rods, reels, I'll blow all my money, but line, it's like, I just can't. 25 pounds, $25 for some line that just hurts my soul.
I used to be super frugal about line, just all my equipment, and just really
Yeah,
try to squeeze every penny in. And I just realized that once you find a line that you work with well, man, whatever it costs, it's worth it. It's
yeah,
just the hassle, because it gets frustrating, man. When you hook into something, then you start snapping line. I mean, it's just, I mean, it could cause me to break a rod. I hate to say it. I mean, that would drive me
it
nuts.
costs you more money then. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
right. Right.
all right. So I definitely have to step up my line because I've been throwing like 6 and 8 on it. So yeah, I'm at least going to move up to 10, maybe 12 now. But if
Come
you
on
see
up,
Kurt
buddy.
out
Come
on the
on up,
water with
man.
yeah, if you see Kurt out on the water with tiny line, things have went sideways.
uh, only up north too. Only when the water is perfectly clear would I even consider it.
Yeah. So what about are you technique wise? Are there certain You said that you're slow rolling it on the bottom. Are you doing like lifts? Like what's kind of, do you have any certain super saucy, juicy techniques that, like fluttering or anything crazy you're doing with it?
Well, yeah, I try to fish it erratically. So if I'm fishing it on the bottom, I'll break it down, man. I've done it in some of my YouTube videos. If I'm fishing on the bottom, I'm trying to feel the bottom because that's what's imparting the erratic action. The swim bait comes in, it hits something, it deflects off of it, hits another rock, moves a weird direction. It's not just going in a straight line. If I'm up off the bottom, I'll almost work it like a jerk bait, but slower pumps to the rod. A real pump, real pump, real pump. And I'll do it kind of in a vertical fashion with the rod, right? Or horizontal, excuse me, horizontal fashion with the rod. So I'm ripping the swim bait, giving it a second to pause to flutter down, ripping it, second to pause to flutter down. And if I'm above that, I'll slow that cadence down and do more lifts. Reel, slow reel, lift, slow reel, lift. I impart a lot more action, I feel like, to a lot of my swim baits than most people ever do. Most people, I see them throw it out, they'll reel it, and
Reel it in. Yeah.
they might just raise the tip a little bit. You know what I mean? They might just go boop every once in a while, boop, and sometimes maybe that's the bite. Because sometimes I'm burning it too, though. I'll burn it in a straight line. Sometimes it's just all speed. But more often than not, I find these crazy erratic movements of the swim bait, making that fish that bait do all different types of weird things is what elicits the biggest and best bites.
And you throw it under dock, you skip under docks, you throw it everywhere, right?
Yep. Yep.
That's definitely something I'm sure they're not seeing smaller profile, swim baits underneath docks for sure.
And what's funny is I was at a tournament 2 years ago, and guys were throwing they were in a it was pre-fishing. They were in a bass boat and ahead of me. They actually cut me off, kind of whatever, but they were throwing big glide baits like next to the docks and kind of and somewhat underneath them and swimming them out. And they had a couple big follows, and I came right behind them with like 20 yards behind them. And throwing a little tiny 3-inch swim bait, man. And I started whacking the big fish. Now they ended up not being there for tournament day, but it was pretty evident that they were eating small and not eating big. Those guys you could hear them say they had some follows. But as soon as I threw that small swim bait underneath there, a lot of times I was getting bit as soon as it hit the water and started dropping just a couple inches. They were coming up and
Are you during practice? Are you just since that's kind of your search bait? I'm sure you use that for practice. Are you just cutting your hook, or are you covering it up, or?
I have, yeah, I usually hook one or two, right? Like
Yeah.
if I get there on Tuesday, I'm gonna hook a couple fish. But then come Wednesday, Thursday, yeah, I cut the hook off. I just cut it off. They cut it down to the barest enough stub to hold the bait on.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I have one that I just basically use over and over. I've
Yeah,
cut
but
the
yeah,
hook
I
off
mean,
so it never hangs up anymore. Once the hook's on, it's never hanging up on anything. So I just get end of practice. I cut that guy off. I throw him in my little box. I tie a brand new one on. And the next practice comes along. I find that little guy. I pull him back out. It's hookless. Tie him back on.
there you go. And last question, since you're on Picasso's team, like Little Spotty and Dock Rockets, right? Two jigs that they sell: Little Spotty, Tungsten Ball Finesse Jig, and Dock Rocket. When are you throwing? Because a Dock Rocket's kind of a great all-around jig, and they sell a living rubber, which I really like. Caught a couple of fish last weekend on one. The When are you going to each one?
So, for me, the little spotty I use in the rivers mostly. And I use it for smallmouth because the hook on it's a shorter profile hook and it's a little bit lighter wire. So I can give uh, hence the name Little Spotty. I get that small compact presentation that we get in the rivers. And I mostly use that in the rivers around here for smallmouth. The dock rocket, man, if you're fishing docks and you like to pitch a jig way up underneath those docks and you like to skip it up underneath there, the dock rocket is flat out the best jig I have ever used for that. I mean, it almost never gets hung up. It's able to like fish its way over wood and around cables. It's really a killer little bait. And it skips so easy. Once you get the hang of skipping a bait, that bait is just, you can get it in the tightest spots.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, man, I don't want to hold you up anymore. We're doing this in the middle of the day. I really appreciate you doing it at this time of the day. Where can people find you online, including your YouTube channel? Because you have a great YouTube channel.
Smitty Fisher for YouTube, and Smitty Fisher for Instagram, and Kurt Smits on Facebook.
There we go, man. I appreciate it. Good. Do you have anything else this year? This kind of
Yeah,
closing down in Ohio, huh?
we're not closing down. Closing down.
Well, getting cooler. I mean, things
Oh
are.
yeah, yeah. So for me, everything's switching, man. I'm moving hopefully very soon to my river fishing for hybrids and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. I kind of like fish. I like the change, fishing for
Yeah.
different species.
Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on, and I appreciate everybody listening. We'll see y'all again next week. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.